time for the 49ers Rush Podcast. And here's your host, John Chapman.
What is going on, faithful? I am so pumped today. If you could see the gentleman next to me, the great JonnyDels, which I just finished his latest installment. It is incredible. We're going to be jumping into 49er scheme, some of those rough questions, and I'm hoping we get a little dialogue here. Johnny, how are you doing, despite the game this past week?
Despite the game, we're doing pretty well. It is a beautiful day in Alabama, at least my section of Alabama. We're not affected by the hurricane. It is 68 degrees outside, not a cloud in the sky, 20% humidity. It is a beautiful Alabama fall day. So, that is where my mind is and not on what happened Sunday night.
It was not a beautiful night. I was lucky enough to be at the game in Denver, and shout out to the city of Denver. Absolutely incredible time. Fans were wonderful. Lots of, just good arguments and banter back and forth. But man, you just walked away from that game just being mad. Like, you left so many opportunities out there. I was so angry. Has there been a point yet for you? I know you just finished your breakdown. Have you gone across the hill? Are we okay now? I don't know. Where are you at? Just kind of how you feel about the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that, for me, I have to take a step back and say, okay, is this the team, or is this a really bad showing of the team? And it's hard in the early part of the season when we haven't had a lot of good to say, okay, this team is really good. And you don't want to live too much on 2021. You don't want to live too much on 2019 and say, well, this is a better team than this, because we really don't know. The team is different from year to year. To me, the game that we saw and the reactions afterwards reminds me a lot of the Colts game last year. It really does. Because that game hurt. It was a game we were supposed to win. It was a game that was going to be us getting back in our groove and making a playoff push. And it was a miserable game, a game that we should have won. You feel like we should have won, but there were so many missed opportunities. Jimmy Garoppolo did not play well against the Colts last year. And he really didn't play well against the Broncos on Sunday night. It reminds me of that. After that game, I remember I went on a podcast and we were talking, and it was like, this could be the end of the Shanahan era. As we were looking at it, like, I mean, if the season continued on that way, would you trust Kyle Shanahan from that point? And they turned the season around after that. But we're seeing the same noise now. We're seeing the Shanahan needs to go noise. We're seeing that Jimmy Garoppolo is who he is and he needs to go noise, which, I mean, I get it, but the other side, it's like, well, they tried to replace him. That plan has not worked out. So it is what it is at this point, but the noise feels the same. The disappointment feels the same. The vitriol from the fans feels the same.
Yeah, I think you're right. And again, like, the 49ers are really good at, establishing this hope and excitement and optimism, only to come out and just like clip you at your knees and just take it out quick. But we've seen this. Now, 2019 was different. You go 9-0. That's an anomaly, right? Like, that's just doesn't happen in the NFL. But this team is made to get into the playoffs, to have success, to be a playoff type team. You just got to wait and allow it to kind of build and steamroll. And, one of the things that I think I left with, which, again, I think that you voiced this very, very well on your last breakdown, bad on bad. Was the phrase that you continue to use. So walk us through a little bit as you were going through the film, which I just finished all the defensive film. So I've gone through every offensive snap, defensive snap, still have special teams, hoping to get through later today. But bad on bad, Johnny. Help us understand what that was and why you just kept saying it, because I agree completely.
It was just mistakes compounding mistakes, and you stop at some point. You got to put down the shovel, and that's what we didn't do. We kept picking the shovel up and digging a hole. The perfect example of that would be the fumbled snap by Jake Brendel. Okay, so he goes on one, and Kyle Shanahan confirmed this. I still see fans arguing about this. That's Jimmy's fault. You go, Kyle Shanahan confirmed this, and you can see it on the film. The team goes on one, he goes on two, you lose the snap. Okay, you that ruins the best special teams play we had all night. As far as offensively, we had an 18-yard punt return. We're almost in field goal range in a game where 3 points is the difference maker. You're going, okay, we're at midfield. We're playing the field position game. It's just about inching your way towards, some sort of scoring opportunity. You have that. You fumble the snap. Okay. Well, all right. Defense holds. But what does that lead to? That leads to Denver pinning us inside the 2-yard line. Okay.
Yeah.
That only happens because Brendel fumbles a snap. Okay. Well, you're inside the 2-yard line. That, to me, when you're in that situation as an offense, you say, we're going to run it 3 times or 2 times and see if we can get some room to throw the ball, something, because there's so many bad things that can happen when you pass backed up against your own goal line. I mean, you can have a hold in the end zone. That's a safety. That's you can have your quarterback run out of the end zone.
Which was the best option, sadly, somehow.
You could have another fumbled snap, and now it's a touchdown. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong when you start trying to throw. You can have a pick. You can have, an incomplete pass, and now you're sitting there at 3rd and long from your own 2-yard line, just trying to create room for your punter. Because if you're on your own 2, now you have a high chance of your punt being blocked. I mean, there's so many things that go wrong, but you're backed up on your own 2, and then you decide to call a blind rollout play action pass. I mean, that was what I don't understand. I understand maybe a quick pass. I understand, something maybe out of a shotgun play action pass, but you're asking your quarterback to have a blind rollout on your own 2-yard line on a play that normally is like a 7-yard deep drop back. I mean, you're putting him closer to the back of the end zone than the goal line from the snap, like from just the play, as he's ran it for 4 years, 5 years. Like, I don't get the play call. At some point, put down the shovel, and then Jimmy Garoppolo, you throw dirt the ball, throw it out of bounds, just don't make an
feet, man. Which we've seen so many times, just that double, triple waddle where he rescinds from the pressure.
And it's like, I get you're trying to buy time, but you don't have that luxury here. It's like bad Brendel, bad on the punt return, bad play call, bad Jimmy. You have bad on bad on bad on bad. And it was just it wasn't one thing. If you would say, okay, if Jimmy does that at the 40-yard line, okay, whatever, Zach, you punt the ball, or you have a pick 6, which would be even worse. Or if Kyle calls a bad play call at the 30-yard line, okay, whatever. You have a fumbled snap, but you're able to, to play the field position game. Okay, whatever. It's when you have mistakes that start compounding into horrible mistakes. And that was what was so frustrating. Every time you'd get something good, it was 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And you'd get, we had a big Jeff Wilson run, and then the very next play we have an illegal shift penalty. I mean, come on. You're knocking on the door to score, and you're doing silly things like that. It was just the whole game was one thing or another. And yes, there was a lot of bad Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, we can't dance around that. To me, the only problem I have with that narrative is that it overshadows everything else. It acts like if Jimmy had just played really well, then we would have had this great offensive performance. I think if Jimmy plays really well, we put up 16, 17 points. Right. I just didn't see enough good from the rest of the team. And you go, and I mean, and you can see that from other teams around the league, this last week. That happened in Tampa Bay. Tom Brady and their offense, Tom Brady played pretty well. The rest of the offense played really poorly, they scored 12 points. You can have your quarterback play really well and you don't score a lot of points. This is one that the entire offense, it's like Kyle said in his presser, he said second half, nobody did well, including me, him, so that's what you saw.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. Yeah, I agree. I mean, this bad on bad and just multiple mistakes, and whether it was McGlinchey or whether it was penalties or a play call, or Burford, who finally showed that he was a rookie, or I think Brendel, who's probably been the most consistently non-positive offensive starter to this point. Like, I don't know a better way to phrase that. Now, Sean asked this. He says, what is one mistake we made a lot that you predict will get fixed this week? It seems like when the 49ers play the Rams, they kind of get on the right track a little bit. 6-1 against them in their last 7 games. Rams defense has not been good. They've been getting gashed nonstop. So of all the stuff that we kind of already alluded to offensively, what is one thing that you think will get on the right track this week, Monday Night Football?
I would like to see the quick passing game get more on track. We don't set up well to drop 5-7 step dropbacks. When you have Trent Williams out, I can almost guarantee you. I mean, if you're Aaron Donald, how excited are you for this game? You got Burford, a rookie, at one guard spot. You got Brendel at the center spot. You can handle either one of those guys, or you can kick out to end and take on either McGlinchey or Colton McKivitz. I mean, is there a matchup if you're Aaron Donald that you don't like? And if you're the defensive coordinator for the Rams, you're thinking, I can put Aaron Donald anywhere on this line, and they cannot scheme around him consistently. They're going to move him around. That's what I see going into Monday night is Donald's going to be all over the line because they're going to keep moving him around so that we cannot account for him consistently. They're not going to give us a set, okay, Aaron Donald's going to be over here, we can slide the line to his side and double him up. They're not going to allow that. So you have to take advantage of the quick passing game. That's where I see Kittle being really important. The Rams like to play a lot of man coverage. That means you're probably going to have Wagner on Kittle. Wagner is not a great cover guy. And I don't think the Rams have really good cover linebackers. So that's a matchup that I like. They might try and put a safety on him, which, we've seen Kittle is pretty good against safeties. If they go zone, then I see that's where Debo can work over the areas that Wagner's going to be. That's where you put him in the backfield and you attack that area. So I see quick passing game. That will be really key. And then can we use that to open up the run game?
So a couple things, because I want to, there's 2 or 3 questions. I want to go down some rabbit holes based off your answer, which was awesome. Real quick in the chat, some people are saying they're not getting notifications. YouTube is failing them. I attached the link in the chat. The problem is I've talked to YouTube 20 plus times. It's StreamYard, which is where we go live with, and it's just a whole mess. But you can fix it on your end. It won't allow us to do anything on our end. I attached that link in the chat there if you want to join us for that. Now, I want to focus on Kittle. When Trent Williams went down, which was awful, safety pick 6 play, the trifecta of darkness took place. It seemed like they kept Kittle blocking in so much more after that. Do you think they're going to continue that trend and keep Kittle much more back in pass pro? I mean, there were times where Dwelly was running routes and Kittle was basically the right tackle. So do you believe that they will versus the Rams? Is Kittle going to get his expected routes, or is he going to be used much more as a blocker?
I would hope he gets his routes because I think that's where you have the matchup win. If Kyle doesn't, I'll be sorely disappointed. I think a lot of that had to do, and I don't, you probably saw this too. We really struggled with them bringing Jewel on a blitz the whole night, and they weren't even always just blitzing him. A lot of times it was creeper blitzes where they would rush Jewel off the linebacker spot and they would drop an end, and we were having to keep 6 in just to account for everybody a lot because the line was not picking those up, and so I would hope that would get ironed out. That seemed to me like a Band-Aid during the game. And so I would hope that he would get more involved in the passing game. I mean, he's a great blocker, but he's a guy that you have to be able to exploit that matchup.
Yeah. And so, okay, now here's my other question. This started with the Rams, those stinkers. We saw them start doing the 5 and 6 man fronts. They were the first kind of to do it against the 49ers and just said, you know what? We're going to clog the middle of the field. We're going to stop the run. We're going to make Jimmy throw it deeper outside the numbers, which he has proven he has yet to do. And if you go to the Broncos game, you get the touchdown drive early on the second drive of the game. You come out the very next series, 5-man overloaded front with 5 D linemen. You know, it's not your traditional 3-4 type setup. They had 5 D linemen out there and basically a gap defense. Even saw some 6 D line fronts versus the Broncos, and it shut the offense down. Now we're going against the Rams, the architect of this gap style defense against the Niners. How in the world do the 49ers finally have success against that 6-man front? And again, this is the answer, right? This is why you draft Trey Lance. But it didn't pan out the way that you had hoped to. What do we do with Jimmy in this offense now to defeat that stacked front?
Yeah, so that's an interesting kind of rabbit hole. I'll try not to get too deep down that rabbit hole because you actually, if you look back to the Super Bowl, Patriots Rams, right? That was what Bill Belichick came out with against the Rams in the Super Bowl, and it shocked everybody. And they went, okay, because the Rams were so wide zone heavy. You know, obviously McVay coming from Shanahan, it was very wide zone heavy, and so he was running that 5 and 6 man front against the Rams in the Super Bowl. They just completely shut down a high-powered Rams offense that Super Bowl, and everybody goes, "Wow, okay, they've cracked this this wide zone Shanahan scheme offense. Like how to defeat it." So that was 2018, right? 2019 comes around. 2020, we play the Patriots. Okay, it was Jimmy was just coming back. It was after the horrible Dolphins game. He had the ankle injury. We play the Patriots. The Patriots came out and tried to do the same thing. Okay. I remember looking at the film, and this was one thing that was so fascinating to me when I went and watched that game a couple of years ago, was the cat and mouse game with Shanahan and Belichick, because Belichick was running 6-man fronts, and it was the same thing. It was almost like 6 D linemen. Okay. And we ended up scoring 33 that game.
Yeah.
And Shanahan was constantly doing things to take advantage of the 6-man. He'd go 5-man and he would throw it. And it was interesting because he threw it more against the 5-man than he threw it against the 6-man. And it had to do, he was running a lot of screens against the 6-man because it had to do with what numbers advantage you could get, and using the screen game as an extension of the run game. And every time the Patriots would go 5-man, they would run man coverage. And then he was using the matchups of Aiyuk and Kittle in man coverage. They were winning their matchups. And so we were able to do that. And we completely dominated the Patriots. It was their worst home loss in like 20 years for the Patriots.
Yeah, rushed for almost 200 yards that game, if I remember right.
Right.
Like, I mean, they were just doing whatever they wanted.
Right. And it was a really interesting matchup there. Okay, now fast forward to last year's NFC Championship game. We're seeing that same 6-man front. I think there was also a big element of surprise there. Because when you look at the previous 6 games we played against the Rams didn't run that front. Like they weren't running that front heavy the whole time. And, you know, it reminds me, I'm a big history nerd, so I'll try not to get too deep into this. Sometimes losers in wars have the advantage the next time the countries fight. Germany had this during World War II. They were the loser World War I. And what they did is they spent 10 years figuring out why they lost. And they came up with a bunch of new tactics to say, this is why we lost. We're going to change the way we're doing this because we obviously couldn't win. So we need to do something different. And they attacked in a different way.
The Schleifen plan.
Right.
Oh, my man, Johnny. I love it. Sorry.
And the allies, the winners, they didn't know what to change because they had won. So they're sitting there going, okay, you know, when they were coming out to war, they said, we can do the same thing we did before because we're better at this. And so they had the exact same defensive plan that they had in 1914 when it was 1940. And it was destroyed by new tactics and new strategy. That's a lot of what I saw in the NFC Championship game. The Rams had been beat 6 times. They said, we cannot win the way we've been trying to play defense. we can't win in this way. They came out and they ran a different defense than they ran. And so I think there was some of that with the change in defensive style, because there was some things that, like, honestly, our offensive line was very confused. I remember we had a 3rd and 1 and we ran a power play and both guards pulled and ran into each other. And it was like, what is going on in your head to where you guys can't figure out what the call was along this line?
Right.
And you saw so many breakdowns in pass protection. You saw so many breakdowns in the run game of guys not handing guys off. So there was a serious lack of preparation against that front. Now, again, that to me, that says this week the 49ers are on the other side of that, and they're going to say, okay, if you're going to come out in this 6-man front, we're going to do something. To me, that means spread it out. I think you have to spread out against the 6-man front. Because I looked at a lot of games this week. I looked at Tampa Bay, Green Bay. I went back and looked at Chicago, Green Bay. I went and looked at the LA and Cardinals game. And what you're also seeing too around the league is a lot of these condensed splits, like we love to do. Kyle loves to bring those receivers in close to the line because he loves crackdown blocks. He loves those to get on the edge. A lot of teams are pretty much stacking the box area with that. They're condensing along with it. And they're saying, look, if you're going to throw it, and you want to try and go deep, you're going to have to get through all this crowd and beat our safeties with speed. And there's not many teams that are able to have long-term success against this. I mean, like I said, the Green Bay Tampa game, Tampa was not able to do much, and they were doing the same thing. I mean, a lot of these formations were just like Shanahan has, very condensed splits. Green Bay was defending them very similarly. Bring up 5-6 men on the line, put 9-10 guys in the box. And Green Bay or in Tampa struggled against that. So to me, when you look at the success we had against Denver, it was from that drive. We spread it out. We spread it out more. Because now you're having bigger bodies in space. And it was so frustrating because after that drive, then all of a sudden it was like we didn't spread out anymore.
None.
And we went right back to those condensed splits.
And not only that, like Bobby here, I appreciate the comment. He says, I think Denver might be the best defense we face maybe all year. So I think moving forward, offense should do better. Yeah, it's definitely a top echelon for what we're going against. And, we're used to the Rams being kind of a top 5 defense. They're very far from it. Falcons torched them. And now, having said that, like, you're right. My biggest issue of probably the whole game, that touchdown drive, you get a quick slant to Aiyuk, you get another kind of drag to Aiyuk, and then you get the touchdown to Aiyuk. He did not have a catch after 6 minutes into the first quarter. Brandon Aiyuk had 0 catches. Now, they did get some targets to him, and I do have to say Patrick Surtain definitely locked him up a couple of times, so it's not like it's just, Kyle or Jimmy or whatever. No, there were some plays where it was man-to-man coverage on the backside of the 3x1 sets, where you finally got your man coverage with Aiyuk and Surtain just put it on him, or Jimmy threw the ball behind or too high, or like Aiyuk won a lot of those reps. We just didn't take advantage of it. So my question to you, Johnny, how much is everybody focuses on Debo in the run game? And I get that, but Aiyuk in the passing game, I just think is such a difference maker that sometimes we tend to forget. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. I would completely agree. And one thing, like you said, there was a couple of those reps that Surtain just really shut down Aiyuk. And there's some of those plays that Kyle is literally saying, okay, Aiyuk, you're our first round wide receiver. You're in your 3rd year. Okay, we're going to trust you on this. We're going to isolate you over there and force them to double you. And I don't feel like he ever really made him say, oh, okay, we got to double this guy. He had, like you said, he won some reps and he did good, but I never saw that, like, what you would expect a top receiver in the league to be. And that's what we need Aiyuk to be. Look, I love Aiyuk with the ball in his hands. I love him as mostly as a receiver. I want to see him elevate to be that number 1 receiver that you really need to take your offense to the point where you can do that. Because it opens up so much more of your offense when you force that team to say this guy has to be accounted for. It was like Green Bay versus us last year. Okay, like we had to start playing defense differently because of Davante Adams. Yeah, we had to. Okay, and you say, well, that's Davante Adams. Well, yeah, that's who Aiyuk should be if we're asking if he's the number 25 overall pick in the draft. and he's in his 3rd year. That's who we expect. And like I look at the stutter and go that we ran to him. We isolated him over there. It was bump and run man coverage. He's running a stutter and go, and there was no separation. I mean, it would have required an absolutely perfect throw from Jimmy Garoppolo to complete that pass.
And you can see his body language. He was upset because, I mean, he had a half of a step, like it could have been completed, but Jimmy's not.
But the window is so small. I mean, you look at the percentages on throws like that, or even still when a receiver has a step, it's only like 40%. It's a really low percentage throw. You need him to be, that guy that catch radius is big. That was Gronk when Brady had him for so long. You could isolate him out there on the outside. And I mean, he had that massive catch radius. That's what a Mike Evans is,
So let me play devil's advocate because Charvarius Ward had Cortland Sutton locked down perfectly.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect back shoulder fade from Russell Wilson. And that was the one touchdown drive they had where it was like inside the 15, I think, on the defensive left side, offensive right side. And it was completed. Now, this is the difference in the game. Russell made a couple fourth quarter plays. Jimmy went negative in the fourth quarter on those kind of crucial plays. And so I don't think it's on Aiyuk as much, but you're right. Aiyuk, it is on Aiyuk some for sure. It's not a I think
I'm not saying it's all on Aiyuk. What I'm saying is looking at Jimmy and saying Jimmy doesn't make that a perfect throw. That can cover up. Well, why didn't Aiyuk win a little bit better? Why didn't he win better on the dig? Yeah, that Jimmy missed the wide open Debo, but Aiyuk is still not winning his dig route. Which I mean, that like both concern me. That one really concerns me. Missing Debo, Aiyuk not beating Surtain, who's he's a very good corner, but we bring Aiyuk in to be that guy. That concerns me too. Neither one is good. And that's why I'm saying it's bad on bad. It's bad that Jimmy misses that. It's also bad that Aiyuk doesn't win on his route and we have nothing on the play. Yep. And, that's bad on bad. And I look at it like, yes, Russell Wilson hit that perfect back shoulder throw. Jimmy also hit the same throw to Juszczyk.
Yeah.
Explain,
that's true.
And that's true. That's the Jimmy G experience. Like, that is what is, I said that in the video, like, you can throw a perfect back shoulder throw to a fullback who makes a tiptoe. Like, that is one of the best fullback throws and catches I've ever seen. But then you miss some rudimentary, you miss Debo streaking down the field, and you miss the curl fit. That's the Jimmy G experience. He's gonna prove everybody right at some point in the game.
It's knowing advanced calculus, but you can't add or subtract. It's just these are the easy ones. You're doing these complex ones with this insanity. I mean, that was a great play. Now, before I want to transition a little bit. Go ahead. I want you to finish this thought. Then we're going to transition to defense. I want to talk some defense with you shortly. Go ahead.
But I guess where I come back on it is that yes, Russell Wilson made that one throw, but you also see how many other shots he missed.
Oh, he was bad.
He missed a lot of those deep shots. And so we can say, well, he completed the one and that was the difference in the game. Well, Jimmy completed one and missed others. Russell completed one and missed a bunch of others. I don't know if that's the difference in the game. I think the difference in the game was just overall bad play and trying to jam a ball in to the tiniest of window that didn't even exist. Which is a Jimmy thing. Like, he thinks that he sees this itty bitty window and thinks he can jam it in there. But it's like, if Aiyuk, we want him to be that number one receiver. I want him to be in the conversation with the Devontae Adams. I want him to be but I'm not seeing him defeat man coverage consistently enough to be like that guy that you go, this is a guy that's going to scare the defense. That when they're game planning, they're going to say, okay, we've got to make sure this guy does not have a game. They're doing that over Debo. Okay. They can do that to a point over Kittle. I don't know if defenses are coming in and they're saying, okay, we have to make sure this guy doesn't have a game. I think they're coming in saying, okay, Pat, you got him and we can take care of everything else. That's how I feel like. And so, what I want to see is him elevate to the point where teams have to account for him at all times. He needs to be that Mike Evans. He needs to be that Devontae Adams. And maybe, with Trey Lance, their chemistry will be better. Lance will be able to put the ball in a better spot, and they can do that. I just haven't seen what I want to see as him now. Ball in his hands, man, the guy's fantastic. But I want to see him take, just elevate a little bit more out of his game.
I like it. Now, before we jump into some defense, real quick word from our sponsor. You know football, and you pick winners all the time, so why not get paid for them at MyBookie? Best single game spreads, money lines, parlays, teasers, multiple. You put it all together, increase your payouts however it is you want to go bet. They've got individual game lines, stats, who makes playoffs, who doesn't. Now, what's even better about it, low cost entry fees on over $500,000 to be won. Make it so you don't have to be a pro gambler to have fun. And that's what's awesome. You can bet a little bit. I'm an entertainment guy. I don't put a whole bunch on there, but getting started is easy. You just head to mybookie.ag, use our promo code 49ERS on your first deposit. They're going to double it all the way up, $1 for $1, up to $1,000 on your first deposit. So again, use our promo code 49ERS, double it all the way up to $1,000. MyBookie is a proven sportsbook that makes it simple to bet and win. We've used them for over 5 years now. So make this your winning season exclusively at MyBookie. Okay, the 49ers defense has been unworldly. Maybe the best as I can remember. It's only through 3 games, so we'll have to see. And people are like, oh, well, look who they played. Denver has had a top offense yardage-wise, and we're still shut down. Now, I think the star of perhaps the team or the defense has been Talanoa Hufanga. I mean, he has been as fun to watch as possible. Now, everybody all offseason was saying, oh, he's such a liability in coverage. He's such a liability in coverage. What have you seen so far through 3 weeks?
Man, he looks like a different player back there. He really does. Like when I saw him as a rookie, that was my concern. I went, okay, Tart was a guy who wasn't a playmaker necessarily. He didn't make a lot of big splash plays, and he obviously had the dropped.
Yeah,
I don't even want to say it. I don't even want to.
I wasn't going to say anything because now I'm going to get those emails.
We know. Okay, but he was a guy that was rarely in the wrong place, and he had a really good closing speed. And I was sitting there like, man, that was the thing I didn't see from Hufanga in his rookie year, was that the hips seemed a little stiff. He didn't seem to always, have that burst to close in the open field. Something happened, with him. That dude just took his game to the stratosphere. And I don't know if it's his just anticipation is better, if his training was better. But man, he looks like a completely different player. He doesn't look like a second-year player. He looks like a 6-year vet right now, and is just playing some outstanding football. Now, some of that has been the amazing play of Deshaun Gibson. He has been a huge, he's come in and played really, really well, and it's allowed Hufanga to play very aggressively, because if he drives on something really aggressively, Gibson's going to be there as a safety net.
He's played so good.
Did
you see Richard Sherman's comments this week? Saying that Tayshaun Gibson has played well enough to the fact that Jimmy Ward could possibly come in at nickel and then shift Ward back to free safety on passing downs. I'm not opposed to it. How crazy is it that we have 3 solid nickels? Demo was incredible. Samuel Womack comes in, plays outside corner for 2 plays and forces a fumble. I mean, who would have developed this idea that perhaps guard and nickel corner are 2 strengths of our team? Which I understand there were some issues this week with Burford, the rookie, but I don't know. The personnel, we build these narratives and we assess our roster and we say, okay, man, strong safety is an issue. Nickel corner is an issue. Guard's going to be an issue. None of those are issues this year.
I mean, it's so interesting because, it kind of takes me back on the whole, you can't trust Kyle, can't trust John. Obviously, these guys do know, some of what they're doing, because they keep finding these gems that just, are not highly touted, that all of us go, I don't know about that. And then, Hufanga, I mean, he literally looks like he could be defensive player of the year right now. And that's not homerism. That's not fan thing. Literally, I mean, you see, it literally looks like the second coming of Palomalu. And it's crazy. And it's not just the hair. Like, that's the thing. It's the style of play and the hair adds to it. I mean, you're like,
yeah, it's incredible.
Did
I forget one of the NFL like legends tweeted that out. Is Polamalu out there? Who was it? Somebody throw up in the chat there. Who was it that tweeted that out during the game? Asking, is Polamalu playing for the Niners again? And you just see it. Sean, I want to say thank you for the gift, man. Thank you, Sean Ferris. Awesome dude. He says, Johnny C and Johnny, pick your offensive player who has been great on film every game thus far and pick another one who you believe will be better. I'll start us off. Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks has been so consistent. There's been some issues. I mean, he's not perfect, but if you could have told me Aaron Banks would be this good 3 weeks in after not playing at all last year, I mean, I just couldn't have bought it. But Aaron Banks has been one of the offensive players for me that's been consistent. How about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Banks or Trent Williams. Trent had a few things week one, but man, he was phenomenal in Seattle and was doing a really good job there in Denver up until he got hurt. Man, that's going to be such a big loss. I would say one of those two guys. That left side of that offensive line has been pretty darn good. They haven't been perfect, like you said, but part of it is too when you start looking across the board, you go, I don't know if I can say the same thing about anybody else. We've had a couple lackluster offensive performances.
Yeah, fair enough. And one that I think will get better. I think Colton McKivitz played a really good couple of series whenever he got in there. There's no Von Miller out there this weekend coming in. So that's one that I'm pretty excited about. Jalen Moore was about as bad as you could possibly be, but I thought he may get cut this week. He was so bad. You either move him to guard or it's done, which he should have been a guard, but they drafted him. They said he was a guard. And they keep playing him a tackle. It just ain't it. Shot Jay, I want to say thank you, man. He says, I'm excited. Jumped on my bookie this week with the code. Double your initial deposit. Man, we had probably one of our worst weeks we've had in 3 years betting, and we went 3 for 9. Which isn't too bad, but it definitely way below our standards. I'm excited. We're going to have a good week this week. We'll have all of those posted up on our Patreon page, which if you haven't joined our Patreon yet, come on. It's the best way to support the show. Patreon.com/40 Rush Podcast. Every offensive snap, defensive snap, special team snaps from the last 2 years. And then some. So head over there, support us there. Now, a couple other questions that have come through, and I just want to say shout out to this Chapman. You guys are crushing it. Do you think that Kyle has become too predictable?
I think anytime you have an offensive system for a long time and it starts to struggle, that's the concern. I think what you see is there's an ebb and flow in the NFL. Back when Kyle's in 2015, 2016, the Seattle 3 was really popular as a defense in the NFL. And Kyle's offense comes in and starts doing really well against it. Kyle spent a lot of time working against it. His coaches start spreading the league. And in response to that, you're seeing a lot more of this Fangio style defense that we saw in 2011, 12, 13, and 14. And that seems to play really well against this wide zone based scheme. And you're seeing a lot of teams now. I think you're seeing the Fangio come in as a response to the Shanahan scheme. And so I don't know if it's just Kyle being necessarily predictable. I mean, you have a monsoon in week 1. We put up 27 points, should have been 30 points, if not for a blocked field goal week 2. And then we have just a horrible game. I don't know if it's too predictable, especially when you're seeing plays left on the field. I do think that Jimmy was really struggling with the matching concepts of Denver. It was very much a Fangio style defense there in Denver. So that will be the thing going forward, is how does Kyle adjust the offense to the more, kind of quarter shell look? Because essentially what you have is you have 4 defensive backs playing with the 10-yard cushion in man coverage. I mean, that's almost what it's like, because they're matching in and transitioning to man at any route deeper than 8 yards. So it does become difficult to necessarily go deep on them. It's designed to keep everything short. You have to attack the short outside a lot. You have to attack around the hashes inside a lot. And you don't want to go over the middle a ton, because that's where they sit the safeties. If they're not being threatened deep, they're going to crash down. And we saw some of that. Okay.
It's Jimmy's nightmare.
Yeah. And so, how does Kyle adjust to this going forward? I don't think he's necessarily becoming predictable. I think they're having to figure out, and remember, they're also rebuilding their playbook from the offseason. They were not expecting Jimmy to be with the team. They were building an offense around Trey, and that went down the tubes. So they're rebuilding an offense here. So I think all of that coming in, leads to what you see in Denver, along with just poopy play. What do you think? Do you think Kyle's becoming too predictable?
I think, part of what makes Kyle in this outside zone work so well is that there's so many wrinkles within every single play call that can beat an overcorrection by the defense. And observe natural evolution, says Kyle adjusts, laughing emoji. But I'll say this. We saw adjustments from Kyle in this game, right? He declines the penalty. They get the field goal. Exact same situation a quarter later. He takes the penalty. He admitted he was wrong. He admitted he was wrong with the play calling. He admitted, these are new Kyle things. So if this comment was there last week, I would have been laughing with you. However, I don't know. I'm hoping this is the start of a new trend for Kyle Shanahan. And we're just going to allow it to play out the way that it could. Shout out to Rook, who said Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson was the one who said, is Polamalu playing for the 49ers currently, and one of the greatest movies of all time, Major League. I love the reference here, Shot J. Jobu, got more chickens for you. You better be listening this week. If not, then forget you, Jobu. Shout out to the Allstate guy. I love Major League. Such a great movie. Such a great movie. Now, before we get out of here, and Johnny, I just want to say thank you for your time. And more importantly, thank you for what you do for the community. As a content creator myself, whenever I can watch a channel or a video and learn, it is incredible. Football, I mean, I've coached for over a decade and, done all these player breakdowns, but I still learn. Where can we catch your content? What's your schedule like so that we know when to look for it? Please share with us how we can find all of your stuff.
So you can find me on YouTube, JonnyDels Football Academy, like you see it on the screen there. You can also find me on Twitter at JonnyDels. I've been more active this year on Twitter than I have in a while. I was, as a millennial, Twitter was something I was like, I don't know about this space, because I can ramble. I know I can. And so Twitter just I don't function really well in a space that limits me to 160 characters. My mind can't work in that space very well. Plus you have some really unhinged people on Twitter. So you can, but I am working that way. And those are the two most common places you can find me. And we normally I push a video out Tuesday night. I usually start working on it Monday night, and it's an all-day affair Tuesday. Usually push it out between 7:30 and 9:30 Pacific time. Just depends on how long the editing takes, and how long YouTube.
People don't understand. We don't just get to go live and it's just there. It's a lot, man.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
And then I'm trying to put out some more content near the end of the week. I am doing a video that will be going live tomorrow night. I'm recording it tomorrow with a Rams film guy. We're getting together and we're going to look at what we expect just from both of our perspectives. He watches a lot of film on the Rams. I obviously cover the Niners, and we're going to get together and maybe some sparks will fly. That'll be interesting. I doubt it. He sounded like a really nice guy, but so we'll do that tomorrow night. Also, you can find me on Spotify for those episodes that will be near the end of the week. Again, JonnyDels Football Academy.
Dude, love it. And if you haven't yet, we are going to be partying in Charlotte, which I'm so excited about. We're going to be at Graham Street Pub and Patio Saturday night, starting 6 p.m. Going to be an awesome hangout the night before the game. And then we got a tailgate set up, man. I'm super excited about at Town Brewing Company. We're going to party there, watch some games, all that stuff, unlimited food, beer, seltzer, all that kind of stuff, and then walk to the game together, which was probably one of my favorite things from Denver. Yeah, we got to hang out with Navarro Bowman. That was incredible.
That's awesome.
Walking with a mob of people through the Denver crowd of all Niners fans. I mean, it was fun, man. It was a really, really good time. So again, thank you so much, Johnny. Any closing thoughts or anything you want to share before we jump out of here?
Man, just thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. You do some great stuff. I wish I could catch more of your stuff. I try and jump on when I see you go live. I have the notification set on mine. I don't follow. I will be honest. I do not jump into many content creators and stuff. I mean, you know how it is when you're putting out a lot of stuff. You're busy, so you can't make time for everybody. But I will always make time for the John Chapman Show.
It's good people. That's good people right there.
That's how good your content is. So you are one of the good ones out here. And so people, if you have not gotten on his Patreon, you get with the program. I mean, you are missing out.
I appreciate that, Johnny, man. That means a lot. Well, guys, you've been awesome. That's going to do it for us now. We will be back at 1 p.m. today on YouTube with Brian McFadden of Legit Football, looking at NFC as a whole. So you can come back and join us for that at 1. And until next time, guys, stay strong, faithful.